The Spawn series continues to be one of my favorite comic books over the last few decades. Ever since its inception in 1992, this infernal anti-hero has captured the imagination of fans worldwide, spawning a global fanbase. One of the standout features of the Spawn comics, in my opinion, has to be its titular character's design, which has inspired the likes of Nobuhiro Watsuki, the creator of Rurouni Kenshin, aka Samurai X. You know that gorgeous flowing cape that Seijuro Hiko, Kenshin's master, wears? Well, it's directly inspired by Spawn's own glorious cape. Bet you didn't know that, huh? My point being, Spawn's outfit has been a major part of not just his character in series, but also other works across media. This became more evident when Todd McFarlane decided to turn it from a mere supernatural outfit into a living, sentient symbiote. This had such a huge impact on the lore of the series and the identity of this character that I can't emphasize enough, in my opinion. In today's video, I'll be exploring what Spawn's suit actually is, from its origins, powers, the toll it takes on Spawn, the fact that its existence is purely based on a sheer stroke of unforeseen genius, and more. So stick around till the end. That said, this video will contain some amount of spoilers, so consider yourselves warned. With all that out of the way, without any further ado, let's begin. Origin. This thing was forged in hell. I think it's quite obvious from just taking one look at the character of Spawn that he isn't any sort of angel. Those familiar with this iconic character will be quick to tell you that he's a Hellspawn, meant to fight the armies of hell for the demon Malebolgia, the ruler of the 8th circle of hell. For the uninitiated, let me tell you a cool fact about Spawn. The suit that you see him wearing isn't some costume that he picked up in hell. Instead, it's actually a neural symbiote attached to Al Simmons, aka Spawn. Imagine it as basically being a symbiote from the Marvel comics, but forged in hell and infused with dark infernal energies. And I think you'll get the picture. When Al Simmons was sent to hell following his death at the hands of his former boss Jason Wynn, he entered a pact with Malebolgia to become his faithful soldier, in exchange for having a second chance at seeing his wife. I think, if anything TV shows and movies of this genre has taught us so far, it's to never trust the words of a devil. Al does get his wish, but by the time he returns to Earth, there's been a massive time skip and his wife has been married to his best friend, and they now have a child. There's also the fact that Simmons is an undead Hellspawn, which doesn't help his case. While I believe Todd McFarlane never actually went into deep detail regarding Simmons' transformation into Spawn, there are a few things that we could take from the various comics and paint a somewhat clearer picture in this regard. In the Spawn universe, there's something called the necroplasm, an infernal magical material that is said to have been created by the grand demon Leviathan, who ruled the 8th circle before Malebolgia. In fact, if I'm not wrong, he's the one who created Malebolgia in the first place. Leviathan would eventually be replaced by his own creation, who would then begin using his necroplasm to reanimate his Hellspawns and the symbiote that they would be attached to. The symbiote that's attached to Spawn is called Letha of the 7th house of K, or simply K7 Letha. In my opinion, Letha not only serves to protect Spawn, but also acts as his prison. I think its dual nature only speaks to the duality and deceit of the demons who forged it. Sadly, McFarlane hasn't explained why the suit is even called Letha and what does the 7th house of K even mean. One thing I can tell you for certain is that the suit can only be forged in the 8th circle of hell and has a mind of its own, beyond that of Malebolgia or even Spawn. Was the suit's sentience actually a mistake? Even though it's now a pretty widely known and accepted fact that Spawn's suit is sentient, let me tell you an interesting story about how this actually came to be. In the beginning, newer fans might be surprised to know that Spawn's suit, despite its eldritch properties, was not actually sentient. I believe it was during an interview with Robert Kirkman in a podcast that Todd McFarlane actually divulged the true reasons why the suit was changed into a sentient symbiote. And let me tell you, it's quite genius, but at the same time, pretty hilarious when you find out why. So according to Todd, during the early days of Spawn, he kept messing up details regarding the character's suit from one issue to another. Todd says in an interview that he'd come under a lot of pressure from fans due to this, as it made it harder for him to explain the errors. He admitted that when it came to drawing Spawn, he played it pretty fast and loose, as it was his style to come up with things on the go. According to him, things like this happened more often than fans realize, and that readers would be horrified at the amount of details that comic book creators forget. Therefore, to solve all these issues, Todd decided to make the suit sentient, and that would explain the inconsistencies in the design, because the suit was in a constant state of flux. To quote him, here's the God's honest truth about Spawn. He was never supposed to have a live costume. I mean, just think about it. What's now considered to be such a major plot point in the lore regarding this character was never meant to exist. I find it genuinely hilarious that Letha was born due to McFarlane being too hassled to remember details about his own iconic creation. K7 Letha would be introduced later in Spawn Blood Feud issue 1, and the rest, as they say, is history. Properties. What this symbiote actually does to its host. In the comics, K7 Letha and others of her kind attach to their host's central nervous system and are therefore bonded for life. In essence, unlike the Marvel symbiotes, when the host for Spawn's suit dies, so do they. The symbiote wraps itself around the host as a suit that functions both as armor and a weapon, along with providing numerous supernatural abilities. For instance, the suit can change into an unlimited number of shapes and forms, which are both organic and inorganic. I believe he uses this power to change into Terry Fitzgerald, his former best friend and now his ex-wife's new husband, to sleep with her. Aside from this, we've seen that the suit can create blades, chains, and other crazy weapons to aid Spawn in battle. The cape can also transform into a shape and material which allows Spawn to glide through the air over short distances. Before I forget, as if all of this wasn't enough, the suit can also turn him invisible by camouflaging him with the rest of his surroundings. Once bonded to a Hellspawn, it augments his strength, making its host even stronger and more durable than he was before. I think we've seen enough of Spawn ragdolling human enemies and even going toe-to-toe with demonic and other supernatural entities to confirm this as a fact. I've seen many fans ask the question whether the chains and the cape are alive too. Well, I think since they're a part of the symbiote's manifestation as a suit, they are alive just as much as the being that they're a part of is. Think of them as limbs and teeth of the symbiote, if that presents a picture which is a little easier for you to digest. My personal favorite ability that the suit grants Al Simmons is the ability to create a freaking pocket dimension. To be fair, it's not really clear whether the cloak is a gateway to this dimension or the suit actually creates it. Regardless, this single power basically grants the suit the potential to warp space and time itself, which is crazy to think about. The suit also has the power to heal its host from almost every single type of injury, including those that would otherwise be considered fatal. I think we also need to factor in the fact that it's a completely sentient, constantly evolving entity, which means that it can adapt to threats and prepare proper countermeasures, without even being directed by the host to do so. I don't believe that Todd McFarlane's also given us the limits of what this suit can do, meaning that the sky is the ceiling. However, I think we can't forget that despite the fantastic powers that it grants, the suit exacts a toll on its host. A toll which, if not paid, can lead to the Hellspawn returning to Malbolgia having run out of literal juice, aka necroplasm. I think that it's important to remember that the fact remains that it's a device meant not to simply empower a Hellspawn, but to keep it chained. The fact that it draws from its host's own life force is a reminder of its infernal origins. Regardless, it's always served Al Simmons faithfully and even seems to be the only thing that's truly accepted Spawn for who he is. Can the suit act without Spawn's permission? The answer to this, in short, is yes, but the nuance is far more complex in my eyes. The suit, as I've already mentioned, is a fully sentient being that is constantly evolving. It can use its own intelligence to alter its shape and dimension for both defense and offense, depending on the need of the hour, without Simmons willing it to do so. This makes fighting Spawn feel like you're fighting two opponents at the same time, in my opinion. As I've said, it constantly is evolving to counter threats that Spawn's encountered, and all of this is the suit acting without its host's permission. Since they're bonded for life, it's imperative for the suit to be able to take over when Spawn is badly injured or unconscious to protect him from further harm. For instance, in one of the comics, when Garib, one of the homeless folks from Rat City, decides to try on Spawn's mask, the suit interprets him as a threat and an outsider, resulting in the poor guy almost being suffocated to death. In another issue, we see Simmons literally rip off K7 Letha and throw her into a river, yet the symbiote is able to communicate with him telepathically. I think this particular detail is important because it shows that not only is Letha sentient, but it's also intelligent and cares about Al Simmons. By making the suit sentient, Todd McFarlane essentially created the scope for exploring a relationship that is akin to the ones we see in Marvel symbiotes with their hosts, and Vampire Hunter D with his hand. It's a cool gimmick, although the comics never really lean into that aspect of it too much. So far in the comics, we've never really seen the suit act out independently to go against Al's will, meaning despite it being capable of doing so, it chooses not to. I think this makes it clear why, in the beginning, I said that while the answer is a solid yes, there are nuances to it. What happens if the suit were to evolve too far? I've already spoken about how Spawn's suit is constantly evolving, thanks to the numerous experiences that the two have gone through together. I've also stated that there is no known ceiling to its evolution, which makes its potential unknown. However, in the comic book series The Scorched, we get to see a symbiote who evolved too far, and the dangers that come with it. In that series, we have a King Spawn, Redeemer, Jessica Priest, and Gunslinger Spawn hunting an entity called the Plague Spawn through the Russian tundra. It soon becomes evident to the group that their quarry is not just an ordinary Hellspawn, but the prototype of the symbiote suits like K7 Letha and K3 Mirlu. I guess due to it being a prototype and not really refined, it proved to be unstable and highly difficult for the Legions of Hell to control. It has all the powers that the K7 Letha has, but enhanced further along with the ability to spread pestilence and disease. The suit can also create numerous copies of itself from its host's blood, although they are weaker than the original. It's largely hinted in the comic that the Plague Spawn also has the ability to transform other human beings into mindless animal hybrid soldiers, though this hasn't been fully verified yet. I think the scariest thing about its evolution is not the powers it displays, but the fact that we do not get the name of its host even once. The comic explicitly focuses on the plague spawn and never reveals its host. I personally think that this was done quite intentionally to show that the suit has overridden its host's consciousness. This means if the suit were to evolve too far, it could effectively erase the personality of the host and act completely independently. This might also have a lot to do with the specific symbiote's own personality and how it views its host. I personally think that it adds a lot of intrigue to this central dynamic between a hellspawn and its suit, which I love. On a darker note, it also highlights the fate that could eventually befall Al Simmons too, which makes the suit quietly disturbing in a way. Weaknesses. The suit also has a countdown clock. Remember I said the suit exacts a toll on its host in exchange for granting them all those abilities? Allow me to elaborate further on how this takes place. As I've mentioned, the symbiote and the host are bonded for life, through the host's central nervous system. Being a symbiote, which is a living entity, it needs to draw nourishment from somewhere to survive. Last I checked, despite being made of necroplasm, which is green, it certainly doesn't have any chlorophyll to create its own food. So it's quite obvious I think it draws this nourishment from its host, which in this case is Al Simmons. However, being of an infernal nature, it doesn't draw sustenance in the form of food and water, but necroplasm and spinal fluids from Spawn instead. In some sources, Spawn is shown to have a fine pool of necroplasm that starts at 9,999 units, which is steadily depleted by the K7 Letha every time it uses its abilities, whether it's to heal, attack, or defend Spawn. What this means is that if this store of necroplasm were to finish, Spawn would essentially be killed. Now, I know some people are probably already typing, "Don't you know Spawn is immortal?" I know he's immortal. That's why I said the killed part with air quotes. Basically what happens is, when Spawn runs out of necroplasm, he's transported back to the 8th circle of hell in front of Malbolgia, because only he is able to replenish this reserve once again and revive Spawn. Now, this would have been fine for any other Hellspawn, despite Malbolgia's infamous lack of tolerance for failures. But for Al Simmons, it's especially the worst possible situation he can be in. If you recall, Al here has rebelled against his creator, which makes him a traitor. Now, as you can imagine, this is a situation that Spawn is desperate to avoid, which is why he doesn't always rely on his suit's powers, instead opting to use conventional weapons like firearms or martial arts techniques in combination with his covert expertise. Before I forget, it's also said that the suit also feeds on the spinal fluids of Spawn, the souls of its victims, and neurochemicals in his brain. As admitted by Todd McFarlane himself, he was writing the contents of this comic on the fly, which resulted in several inconsistencies and things being mentioned and forgotten, which could be the case here. I think that this is such a clever way to make a character super powerful, but also keep him from becoming too overpowered. I think it's abundantly clear as to why Spawn's suit is much more than just a costume. It's basically a partner at this point, after the changes that made it sentient. For a man who's rejected hell and has been denied by heaven, K7 Letha is the only one that has embraced him, both literally and emotionally, for who Al Simmons is now. I've explored everything from the nature of their symbiotic relationship to the pitfalls of having such a suit. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about the Spawn's suit. Letha of the 7th House of K in the comments below. For now though, it's time for me to say goodbye. I hope I get to see you in the next one. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos from us. Until then, stay safe